Deep in a quiet forest lived a very unusual little witch. Her name was Lisa. She was nothing like the evil witches people imagined. She was kind and innocent, and she was also pretty mischievous. Lisa was already 127 years old, but for a witch, she was still just a 12-year-old kid. Her magic skills were just as childish. She was basically a beginner. She wanted to summon a thunderstorm, but instead, pine cones started falling from the sky, one after another. Pine cones slammed onto the roof and leaves, leaving her completely embarrassed. She refused to give up, and tried again, but this time it was even crazier. Instead of rain, stainless steel spoons came falling from the sky. They clattered all over the ground. The sunlight bounced off them, and was so bright she could barely keep her eyes open. She stomped her feet in frustration, but there was nothing she could do about her terrible magic. No one could have guessed that this little witch who could barely learn a basic spell would later do something that changed her fate. The spring festival came once a year, and it was the biggest event for adult witches. That night, the witches' fire lit up the whole valley. All the witches gathered together to sing and dance. They wore beautiful robes and pointed hats, and celebrated around the fire. But there was one strict rule. Only adult witches were allowed to attend. Lisa obviously wasn't allowed in, so she could only watch from the window, staring at the fire in the valley. The crow kept warning her not to go, because if she got caught, she would be in serious trouble. But Lisa couldn't resist. In the middle of the night, she secretly climbed onto her broom, and flew to the spring festival. She carefully slipped into the crowd, and tried to copy the other witches dancing. The adult witches moved fast and gracefully, while Lisa could barely keep up. She even dropped her broom on the ground, but she didn't care at all. It was her first time at a festival like this, and she was having a great time. But the fun didn't last long. Her aunt spotted her soon enough. She exposed Lisa in front of all the witches. Everyone stopped dancing, and turned to look at Lisa. Then the witch queen appeared. She sat in an old wooden wheelchair, and slowly came over to Lisa. A huge witch's spellbook was brought out. Inside were more than 7,000 spells. The witch queen gave Lisa a chance. If she could learn every spell in the book before the next spring festival, and pass the test, she would be allowed to attend the festival. But she still had to be punished. Her aunt threw Lisa's broom straight into the fire. It was Lisa's favorite broom. She could only hold back her tears. Now that her broom was gone, she had to walk home on her own, and she had to carry the huge spellbook herself. She walked through the forest, and crossed freezing streams. Her shoes wore out, and her feet were covered in blisters. But she kept going. For 3 whole days and 3 nights, she finally made it back to the little cabin in the forest. The moment she opened the door, she nearly collapsed. The crow immediately flew over, and landed on her shoulder. Once Lisa got home, she quickly told the crow everything that had happened. She was already looking forward to next year's spring festival, but the crow knew the truth. If Lisa wanted to attend the festival, she first had to learn all 7,000 plus spells. Lisa nodded seriously, then opened the huge spellbook, and got ready to start from page 1. The first spell she learned was the wind spell. She followed the instructions in the book, and carefully recited the spell. The wind never showed up, but the crow suddenly grew a pair of huge ears. 2 fluffy ears hung from the sides of his head, and he looked absolutely ridiculous. The crow jumped around angrily, while Lisa couldn't stop laughing. Then she started practicing more spells. A few days later, Lisa came across several old women gathering firewood on the mountain. They were bent over, searching the woods for dry branches. Lisa remembered the wind spell she had just learned, and decided to try it out. Soon, a powerful gust swept through the forest, and branches went flying everywhere. Lisa herself got caught in the wind. She spun through the air several times, and finally landed under a pile of branches. The old women quickly picked up the firewood, and loaded it into their baskets. But a forest ranger showed up right away, and refused to let them take the wood. Lisa couldn't stand watching it, so she quietly cast a spell. When she got home, she told the crow what had happened, but the crow didn't think she had helped anyone. He thought she was just causing trouble again. The next day, Lisa went to the market to buy a new broom. She looked around for a long time, and finally picked a light willow broom. Then she noticed a little girl selling paper flowers. The flowers were beautifully made, but they had no scent at all, so nobody wanted to buy them. Lisa walked over and gave them a sniff, and suddenly the flowers filled the air with a wonderful fragrance. People immediately gathered around. Everyone wanted to buy the flowers. The little girl stared in amazement, but Lisa quietly slipped away. She climbed onto her new broom, and happily flew home. Once she got home, Lisa kept practicing magic every day. One day, she was sitting in the yard doing nothing, when 2 lost children found her house. The 2 kids were cold and hungry. Lisa quickly brought them some cake, and even showed them a few spells. The children were thrilled. But just then, her aunt suddenly showed up. Lisa quickly hid the children inside a cabinet, because the witches had strict rules. Witches weren't allowed to get close to humans, and they definitely couldn't use magic in front of them. Friday was also a day when magic was forbidden, but Lisa had broken every one of those rules. Just as her aunt was about to find the children, one of the boys suddenly sneezed. The sound immediately gave them away. Her aunt walked straight toward the cabinet, and was just about to open the door, when the crow suddenly flew out, and successfully distracted her. Her aunt looked around, but eventually walked away. It seemed like Lisa had gotten away with it, but in reality, her aunt already knew what she had been doing. Lisa had no idea, and she kept practicing magic every day. The days passed, and winter soon arrived. Heavy snow covered the entire forest. The children built a snowman in the snow, When they saw Lisa, they immediately invited her to play. Lisa joined them, and they all ran around the snow holding hands. Suddenly, a rock came flying through the air, and smashed into the snowman. Two boys walked over from a distance. One of them wanted to destroy the snowman completely. Lisa wasn't about to let that happen. As soon as the boy got close to the snowman, Lisa cast a spell. His shoes instantly froze to the ground, and he fell flat on his face. Then, a huge pile of snow came crashing down, and buried him. His friend couldn't stop laughing. The boy stormed off. Lisa felt like she had gone too far, so she quietly followed him. But she soon discovered that when the boy got home, his father was yelling at him. His father was red in the face, and still had a bottle in his hand. He kept shoving the boy around. Lisa hid behind a tree, and watched the whole thing, but she didn't go any closer. That night, the father and son went to a casino. When the father was ready to place his bet, Lisa secretly cast a spell. The ball that should have rolled straight ahead suddenly changed direction, and slammed into the wall, leaving a huge hole. The father tried again several times, but the same thing happened every time. The casino quickly descended into chaos. Chips flew everywhere, and the other gamblers scrambled out of the way. In the end, the owner threw them both out. Lisa stood on a rooftop in the distance, watching everything. Then she turned and left. Time kept moving, and Lisa continued studying every day. Little by little, she mastered the entire spellbook. She had memorized everything inside, and she could now perform even the most complicated spells and gestures with ease. Soon, her 128th birthday arrived. After her birthday, she went to the agreed meeting place, and prepared for the Witch Queen's test. The first test was the powerful wind spell. The moment Lisa cast it, a fierce wind swept through the area, and blew out every fire around them. Only thin trails of smoke remained. The second test was the lightning spell. The sky quickly filled with dark clouds. Thunder kept booming, and lightning flashed across the sky. The Witch Queen watched and nodded with satisfaction. That meant Lisa had passed the test. It also meant she could make an exception and attend this year's spring festival. But just as Lisa was getting ready for the celebration, her aunt suddenly gave her another condition. She said that even though Lisa had learned every spell, she still wasn't a real witch, because she kept helping humans. In the witch's world, a proper witch had to learn how to do evil. So, if Lisa still wanted to attend the spring festival, she had to turn the two children into stone. Otherwise, all her magic would disappear, and she would become an ordinary human. After hearing this, Lisa could only leave. She quickly found the two children. They were playing in their room, completely unaware of the danger around them. Lisa stood in front of them, and began casting a spell. But when she saw the fear on their faces, she stopped. She just couldn't bring herself to hurt them. Instead, she drew a magic circle around the children. A faint golden light surrounded them, protecting them from the other witches. Lisa gave the children one last look, then turned and walked away. Lisa returned home alone. She sat beside the fire, and started thinking of a way to solve the problem. Then she had an idea. All the witches' magic came from that spellbook. If she destroyed every spellbook, and struck first, maybe she could end the whole problem for good. So, she started putting her plan together. Finally, the spring festival came around again. Lisa arrived at the celebration early. She cast a spell first, and suddenly, all the witches' brooms flew into the air. Then they piled up together, until they formed a huge mountain. Next, she cast a summoning spell, and called every witch's spellbook from all over the place. One after another, the heavy books came flying in, and soon formed a towering pile. The witch queens realized something was wrong, and immediately prepared to cast spells at Lisa. But Lisa was ready. She struck first, and took away all their magic. The witches kept waving their hands, but none of their spells worked anymore. Everyone froze in shock. Then Lisa cast another spell, and turned all the witches into ugly toads. One by one, the toads crouched on the ground, croaking non-stop. Her aunt was transformed too, into a bizarre creature, with a pig-like nose, sharp horns on her head, a goat beard on her chin, and a ponytail behind her. Terrified, she turned and ran. The whole festival instantly fell into chaos. Lisa stood in front of the burning brooms and spellbooks, with the firelight glowing across her face, and she finally understood. True magic was never just hidden inside those ancient pages.